call meeting to order and welcome everyone. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing as Pastor James Lytle from the New Salem Missionary Church in Swananoa will lead us in invocation.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, as we come this afternoon, we come with love and thanksgiving, thanking you for another opportunity to assemble ourselves here to do business for the town of Black Mountain. We pray, O gracious God, that everything be done decent in order, that you would order their steps in your will and their way. We thank you, O gracious God, for each one represented here this evening, that we will get some better understanding of the business that's done for the town of Black Mountain. We thank you for your Son, Jesus, who died on yonder cross, that we might have a right to the tree of life. For us, in the name of Jesus, we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend. Okay, a couple of announcements. The biggest one, congratulations to the Owen football team and to Kenny for an undefeated season. That's amazing. This is the second undefeated season in Kenny's history at Owen. It is the third undefeated season in Owen's history. I was able to be a part of that 66 team that was undefeated. That was several moons ago. The other thing, I attended a mayor's convention in Asheville for the Metro mayors and heard from several different speakers there. It was good to talk to some of the other mayors and the town managers. The one thing that was discussed a lot was by Senator Apodaca was the incentives that are being offered, some liberally, some not so liberally, by the legislature to try to attract businesses into the state of North Carolina. It seems as though that it's not an exact science of a policy of how much that you're going to. They tend to go after the big businesses. I always keep talking about how smaller towns need incentives too. Reminded them that, we've had the convention in Asheville, which is the home of the Biltmore House, which is the Vanderbilt estate. And if y'all remember, the Vanderbilts were railroad barons who received, as did other railroad people, hundreds, not just hundreds of thousands of acres of free land out west if they would build a railroad out there. So incentives work. We don't have to give away the farm in order to attract businesses like Alabama did to get BMW, a Mercedes, or Greenville did to get BMW. But I encourage them to be thinking of incentives that would help smaller towns in our business formations. Understanding that really, when you really get back to the bottom line, is that none of us here, none of us over there, no action you do that you do without an incentive or a reward. So I think that it's good. Hopefully he will relay that back to the legislature, and maybe we will see something for our town and other small towns. We now have the citizen comment. Citizen comment, first up is Dawn Trutwin. And as Dawn makes her way up here, I will remind everyone that citizen comment is 3 minutes and 3 minutes only.
Good evening, Board of Aldermen, staff, and members of the community. My name is Dawn Trutwin. I'm at 111 3rd Street in Black Mountain. And I will say, I'll talk fast. I had requested from the Board of Aldermen to be put on the agenda for this month's meeting, but I understand by procedure it's at your discretion to vote not to put me on the agenda, and so I'm going to talk fast. I was told at the last meeting to ask my inquiries of the Black Mountain Parks and Greenways Foundation, so I started doing some questioning and research on that. The foundation was formed July 12, 2010. The articles of incorporation to make it a 501c3 nonprofit organization were filed February 21st, 2010. The name of the incorporator is John DeWitt. 169 Hilltop Road. The name of the registered agent is John DeWitt, and he's filed it as the corporation will not have any members. The certificate for the fundraising aspect of the 501c is, and that was registered in the name of the Black Mountain Parks and Greenways, Inc. The tax forms filed in the name of Black Mountain Parks and Greenways, Inc. The operating account is under Black Mountain Parks and Greenways, Inc. The name foundation is kind of like a blanket name, but it's not their legal name for the corporation. On 2/14/2011, you as the Board of Aldermen adopted a cooperative agreement between the Town Square Steering Committee and the Black Mountain Parks and Greenways Foundation. The signed paperwork is between the Town Square Steering Committee and the Black Mountain Parks and Greenways, Inc. On February 10th of 2014 this year, you as the Board of Aldermen unanimously passed a motion that stated that after the town took over the management and took back the Town Square on July 1st, 2014, that everything should come back to the town as far as the records, the funds, and the administration of that project. On March 10th of 2014, you passed another motion unanimously that states that bank statements, contracts, and all records since inception of the Town Square Steering Committee as formed by the Black Mountain Board of Aldermen are public documents open for public inspection. According to the board request, there should be a report of assimilating the disbursements and the receipts. On 10/10 of 2014, you as a Board of Aldermen received a report that was not correlated and submitted by the Town Square Steering Committee. It was done by a private citizen, and you were given these amounts and the totals with the permission of the head of the fundraising and the corporation, Mr. John DeWitt, that you could release this.
Thank you. Appreciate your comment.
I knew I wouldn't make it
Next
through in the 3 minutes.
Is
I guess if we have to do this
is
3
Phil
minutes at a
Besessi.
time, that'll be all right.
Phil Besessi, 15 Highview Drive. I want to talk about public safety tonight. There's lots of people who come to this town. They'd like to leave their cars parked. I'll give you a couple of examples.
Can't hear you.
Excuse me. There's people who would like to leave their cars. Do I have to push a button?
Put the microphone closer.
Okay. Is it working now well? Thank you. So there's people who come to this town to vacation. They'd like to leave their cars parked where they're vacationing. So one thing I want to address is the motel next to Denny's. You can't safely walk from that motel to downtown. The sidewalks and crosswalks are inadequate. You can't cross the entrance and exit ramps going into I-40. There's no crosswalk markings on those ramps. You get into town and in front of Tyson's, there's a crosswalk, but there's no marking to show it yield. I'd like to suggest that every place there is a crosswalk, there be a yield sign, and any parking that inhibits the use of that yield sign be removed. Those parking spaces should be reserved for bicycles and motorcycles only. Next thing I want to talk about is this ordinance you just passed limiting a home business to 500 square feet. I'm in violation. I moved a big office into my home and I have more than 500 square feet of just plain dead storage. I'd like you to readdress that. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Next, Dr. Headley.
Mayor, older people, I'm Bob Headley, 433 North Fork Road. I was going to talk a little bit about what a 501c3 is, but I don't need to now. I really don't want to be here tonight. I'd rather be at home in front of my fireplace in my rocking chair with my lab by the side and a beverage in one hand and watching a ball game. But there have been some innuendos about the propriety of financial management of the Town Square project. And I love that Town Square. In the 2 decades that I've been here, my wife and I retired to our home place. That's the most significant thing that I've seen happen in Black Mountain. You're to be congratulated on your foresight, your wisdom in doing that. Now, remember, you decided to buy the property, the prior board. And then Walgreens wanted to buy it. You had a public hearing. As I recall, 49 people spoke in favor of keeping it, putting it in the park. But you decided to go ahead and do it, and you charged the steering committee to raise the funds using private funds. Now what's going on now is this investigation, this witch hunt going on. Is it a vendetta? Is it a divine mandate from above to look for transgressors of the town square and persecute or prosecute? Is it really a desire for public service to be the watchdog of how you spend your money? Or is it for personal gain? Is it for name recognition for subsequent election? Maybe for one of your spots. I don't know. But that town square is a good thing. You've done a good thing. We've done a good thing. It'll be remembered for years to come. Your efforts will be appreciated. Let's put it to rest. Let's stop this witch hunt. Get on with things. We've got more important things to do. Thank you and good night.
Thank you for all the work that you did on that, sir. Marilyn Savansky.
Marilyn Spansky, Rainbow Recycling. Good evening, everyone. The 3 R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle, are the desirable ways, in that order of priority, to deal with the materials and things that we no longer want or need. While all 3 ways have their benefits, the benefits of reuse can be immediate and truly local. As part of Rainbow Recycling's networking and educational efforts, we help to get the word out about both recycling and reuse events, opportunities, especially in our local area. Here with me today is Athena Elmore of the Black Mountain Community Clothing Closet, a group of volunteers who hold a clothing swap twice a year at Carver Center. The next one is this coming Saturday, November 8th. I'll turn it over to Athena to share with you all the details.
Hi, my name is Athena Elmore, and I just 4 years ago built a home at 215 Central Avenue here in Black Mountain. I love this community. I'm so glad that I moved my kids here. Shortly, about a year after I moved here, a friend let me know about a clothing swap that was happening at the Carver Center. And I went up there and immediately thought I have to be a part of this. Twice a year we take donations, probably a month before the swap. All clothing, children's clothing up to adult clothing, household goods even, and shoes. Myself, Lisa Noel, and Bethany Boyle run it, and we collect clothing all year long. Our living rooms get full, our stairwells get full, our basement shower that isn't in use yet gets full of clothing. And I just want to raise awareness for this wonderful thing that's going on and get some people involved in trying to expand it. The last few clothing swaps, we have clothed over 200 people in one day. That's the one thing we ask of anyone that comes, is to tell us how many people you've gotten clothing for. it would be great to get more donations, to get the word out there to local churches and organizations, to let them know what we're doing, to help families who are in need, to get clothing for their families without having federal red tape involved and filling out forms and saying why they need it. If you need it, come and get it. We would like to expand so that when we have families in crises, they can come and say, we need this. And we can go through and find them clothing for their families that is going to be of use to them. I think it's been a really great resource for my family of 8, yes, 8 people. It has been a wonderful thing that we're not going broke just trying to clothe our children. This Saturday from 9 to noon at the Carver Center, we will be putting out clothes. You can bring what you want, take what you need. No one has to donate in order to take things. So
Okay.
we appreciate your support and our
Thank you.
efforts.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that does it for citizen comment. Now we have communications from the board, ABC board. Mr. Barrister Christie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Alderman. I'm Bill Christie. I live 108 9th Street here in Black Mountain, and I'm chair of the Black Mountain ABC Board. I think you've received my report. So I'll just hit a couple of the highlights. We have the other 2 board members are Rick Harwood and Deborah Wooten. I think it's a very good board. We work hard, but really we have a very simple task. We have a monopoly on a product that a lot of people want, and we sell it, and then we turn money over to who we're supposed to turn money over to. And then, of course, we have systems in place to try to make sure all that's done properly. And I'm happy to report, I think copies of the audit were circulated, and we have an unqualified opinion from our auditors. Everything's being done right. We're making money. We made a little less this past year because of some expenses that we knew about relating to personnel, but things are going very well. I would point out, and I pointed out in the report, right at the end of one of the auditor's notes, they noted net position is an indicator of the financial health of the board. Assets exceeded liabilities by $475,200 in this past year, fiscal year 14, and $472 in 13. Unrestricted net position for the years ended June 30th, 14 was $284,375, and 13 was $280. So we increased our unrestricted net positions. At the same time, as you're aware, in 2014, we had a special distribution of $50,000, $37,500 of which went to the town and $12,500 to Buncombe County. We don't know when yet, but we anticipate sometime, certainly in the next 2 years, we'll be in a position to make another significant distribution, assuming everything keeps going. And we believe it will. We have a new manager, Randy Reese, doing a great job. Good staff. They're hard working. They're dedicated. And I did point out on the second page, just look, if you go on the state ABC board, you can see all the statistics you could ever want to see. But I thought it was interesting that if you compare us to similar size, and I just chose boards that have incomes of $200,000 or less. Let's see, last year we were 6th out of 110 boards in that category, and this past year we slipped a little bit to 13th out of 114 boards. So I think we're well run. We stack up against anybody in the state, and as I said at the end, I think that we're all, I can say without reservation or qualification, that we're an efficient organization. Management is efficient. The facilities are being taken care of and modernized as we need. We want to make it an attractive store. The employees strive.
to focus on service to the customers. Our capital positions are strong, and both the board and employees strive to be an organization which the town of Black Mountain can justly take pride. So that's about all I have to say about it. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any comments from the board? No? Thank you for your time and effort on this, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, Matt, consent agenda.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. You have the adoption of minutes from your October 9th agenda meeting and your October 13th regular session. You've got a budget amendment to reflect $7,250 raised privately for the fireworks that we had on July 4th. There's still some outstanding pledges that if those end up coming in, we will of course come back and reflect those. You have a couple of changes to the town codes. For driveway permits, it requires people to turn that permit into the town clerk. It makes more sense to have that permit turned into the planning board, or to the planning department, I apologize. And then an amendment to the Article 4, parades, festivals, and special events. For special event permits, we currently require 10 days notice. We'd like to require 30 days notice, which, as I've noted previously, almost everybody gives more than that, but it does give us an opportunity to make provisions in case there is an issue there. You've got a call for public hearing for text amendments to setback provisions. There were some procedural issues with our public hearing in October. We would request that you delay the effective date of the ordinance that was passed then for up to 45 days. Call for a public hearing on setback text amendments, and we'll do that in December. And then you have a call for public hearing for text amendments on some building code issues about where the water shutoff is located on the homeowner's side of the property within 3 feet of the meter. And then a call for public hearing for a voluntary annexation of property owned by the Givens of the Highland Farms property, which includes a parcel that is partially in the town and partially outside the town. And those are your consent item agendas for tonight.
All right, do I hear a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Any discussion? If not, then all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. We now go to the public hearing. This is a call for the public hearing for voluntary annexation. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one there. Here it is. The public hearing for text amendments to abandoned, junked, and nuisance vehicles. I need to get a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? So we now have a public hearing for the text amendments to abandoned, junked, and nuisance vehicles.
If you'd like, I'd be glad to have Planning Director Josh Harrell come up, just kind of give you an overview.
That sounds good.
While he's stepping up here, I'll remind you that we have been through this previously, and the board had sent this back to the planning board with some recommendations for some different conditions to consider as part of our junk vehicle ordinance, and of course some of the definitions are required by general statute, and so we've done our best to accommodate those, and this is the culmination of that effort.
Okay. And then when Josh finishes, then it is open for anyone to voice an opinion if they wish. Go ahead, Josh.
Okay. So going through, the first section is just the definition section, and pretty much anything underlined is obviously something new. And a lot of this, what Matt just said, is getting us in line with the general statutes where we're currently not as of today, where we add in a lot of the ors and the ands we don't currently have in our code, which we do need those to be in there. The actual definition for antique motor vehicle is something new that we've borrowed from a couple of different counties, and what this does is really give, I guess, a little more leniency to folks that have antique motor vehicles that won't necessarily be charged as junk motor vehicles if they meet certain conditions and if they're paying Buncombe County property taxes on the antique vehicles. And then we take out building inspector and solely rely on the zoning administrator to enforce this, and the police department both. But there was no need to have the building inspector enforce this. We just switched it to the zoning administrator. The next page, you'll see all the ors that I mentioned. We did change under nuisance vehicle in section 2, we changed the vegetation height from 8 to 12 inches. And section 5, with a little help from Ron, we reworded this to make a little more sense than what we'd previously had. And then 20.20 administration enforcement is just changing from building inspector to zoning administrator. 20-33 is exceptions. We already have this section in there, which talks about bona fide automobile graveyards. They're already in the general statutes. And then we jump over to all this new portion, which mentions antique motor vehicles again, and says they are an exception. Of course, C says it does not apply to, this is another new section, which is farm equipment. We're going to not worry about farm equipment. If someone's using the equipment on their property, normal business, tractors, farm trucks, forklifts, things of that nature, of course they've got to be paying taxes on this stuff as well.
Josh, just to clarify that even the farm equipment and the others, still, if it fits the definition of a nuisance vehicle, it still.
Could still be an issue.
Yes.
Yes, correct. Just because you have a farm equipment or antique vehicle, if it's still causing a nuisance, then you still would be in violation, of course. Then D, basically just states that anything we've mentioned previously is not going to apply if you're not paying taxes on the equipment or the vehicles. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 just go into and explain that the vehicles are got to be on fully inflated tires. They couldn't be parked inside the setback. So if the setback was, for example, 10 feet, you couldn't have it parked 10 feet or less. It'd have to be about 10 feet or back. 3 is a waterproof shelter cover, or the internal parts need to be watertight. 4, of course, is, we mentioned this earlier too, but talks about infestation of rodents, things of that nature. And then the car needs to be made inaccessible to people from just getting in the car and maybe squatting or sleeping in the vehicle. It needs to be able to be locked or windows rolled up, things of that nature. And then we're allowing 60 days for this to come into effect after, if y'all so choose to pass it. I know I went through that fast, but I'll answer questions. I know the town attorney did look at this multiple times. Planning board's been through this thing multiple times. Hopefully we've got a good one this time.
Does anyone wish to speak to this ordinance? Okay. Thank you, Josh. We will, do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Now we need to adopt the proposed amendments as presented or as amended if the board wishes to amend.
Motion to accept.
All in favor?
To accept as presented. Accept as presented.
Okay.
And we can still make amendments to it afterwards.
Well, we
Yes.
no discussion. Yeah, we
need
need
to
discussion.
And then you can do it. So now we have discussion,
Yeah.
and then if you wish to do so, to amend, then now's the time to do it.
In number 3, 20-33 exceptions, it's my understanding, Josh, if you can come back up here, please, that we don't have any limit on outside vehicles. I'm assuming if it's inside a building.
Right, there's no limit then.
There's no limit, but there needs to be, I think, a limit set on the cars that fit the qualifications to, so that we're not becoming a used car lot, so to speak. And I think the limit of 3, and it's what I'd like to suggest, should be the maximum that anybody can have that fits this category.
That fits the exceptions? Is that what you mean? Because
For the antique motor vehicles.
Antique motor vehicles exception.
Yep, the exceptions.
You're talking about the
Under B.
antique.
Yep.
Under B.
Under B.
Yeah.
That's certainly fine with me. I'm fine with me, Don.
So you're proposing then for that to be written so that there's only 3 a maximum 3 that can be outside
Yes.
an enclosed shelter.
Yep.
So what, I mean, if Ron could maybe suggest some amendment language there to make that work as it should, as you're intending it to, Don.
You could probably do that for restoration of up to 3 antique motor vehicles.
okay.
That'd be the simplest way. I don't know if it's the best way, but it's the simplest.
How is that, Ron?
Just insert where it says restoration of antique motor vehicles is defined by this ordinance. A restoration of up to 3 antique motor vehicles.
Yeah, but you're gonna need to make sure that that's differentiated from outside and inside.
Yeah.
Okay, so because what you're saying then is that if you've got them enclosed,
And if you've
You
got
don't-
them in a garage.
you don't care,
It's-
you don't
You
mind.
can have as many as you
No.
want.
But I think you can
Okay.
have too many outside.
But the antique motor vehicle exception is for outside, though, right?
Currently, you can have as many as you want to, as long as they're enclosed.
Okay.
I mean, if you've got junk vehicles, as long as they're in an enclosed building, then it doesn't matter how many
So
you got.
the exception for antique motor vehicles also implies that it's outside. Otherwise, you would need an exception for that. Is that fair to say, Ron?
If it makes them more comfortable, we can put restoration of up to 3 antique motor vehicles
Outside an enclosure?
outside an enclosure as defined by this ordinance.
Okay.
One other question, Josh, if, it's my understanding, as I'm reading this, if they're not paying taxes on that vehicle, then they're disqualified regardless of how old the car is and the condition and shape. They have to pay taxes on it.
Right, it's correct. I mean, if the car's not junked though, or nuisance or anything else, then that's not gonna matter. If they've got a car in their driveway and we don't classify it as a junk or nuisance vehicle or an abandoned vehicle, then they don't necessarily have to meet the antique vehicle. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, they'll be paying taxes on those anyway, because they're
I
taxed.
think with you know, with the language of having to pay taxes on it is gonna catch most of them. I mean, that's gonna catch most of the issues, I think.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other amendments they'd like to put in?
So just so I'm clear, under 20-33 exceptions B, we're gonna say restoration of antique motor vehicles up to 3 vehicles outside an enclosure as defined by this ordinance shall be considered an exception.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
We just need Alderman Harris to consent to amend his motion.
I do.
Okay.
all right, no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now we need a motion to adopt the statement of consistency.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Also unanimous. Communications from staff. Town attorney.
We'll update the board. As most of you are aware, on October 20th, surprise to us, the settings bond case was called on for hearing before the Court of Appeals. They had a traveling panel that month that came to Hendersonville. Ann and I were able to attend. Well, obviously I had to attend the oral arguments. The judges were Judge McGee, Judge Stillman, and Judge Hunter of McDowell County. We think it went well. just from the nature of the questions that we were asked and the other side was asked. But that means nothing, but it felt good. The other side, there'll be a surprise. Typically, I told you probably 60 days ago that expect a year from now we might get a decision from the Court of Appeals. At this point, Judge Hunter is retiring. That means the decision has to be filed before he leaves the seat. So at the end of the year, we should have a decision on this case.
All right, thank you, Ron. Matt?
I would just remind you that we called a special meeting for November 20th, Thursday, November 20th at 8:30 to discuss Phase 2 of the Greenway extension, and I think everybody has consented that that time will work. So I just wanted to put that out as a reminder. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any communication from the Board of Aldermen?
The only thing I would like to say is that I think before we meet again, we'll all celebrate Thanksgiving, and I am thankful to live in Black Mountain and thankful for the opportunity to serve on the Board of Aldermen, and appreciate the opportunity, and wish the staff and all the folks in Black Mountain and Mayor, Board of Aldermen, a blessed Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Thank you. I think the rest of the board feels the same way, and we wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I could, I'd like to thank Dr. Headley for coming up and speaking the words he did this evening. Thanking him and that committee also for Town Square. It's time to move on, folks. Let's put everything aside and move on. We've got a jewel up there now. Let's like it. Let's love it. Let's put whatever differences there are aside and move on and enjoy what we have. Thank you.
Right now, we have there's a hike planned with Ronnie Sneed and myself and a gentleman regarding out into the watershed. So if any of the board members wanted to join us on that hike next Tuesday, we will be leaving here in the morning. But, hopefully by that time, all the leaves will be off the tree so we can see the backside of the watershed. Anybody got anything else? If not, I'll make us adjourned.
They should be. We got another week.